Hi, I'm State Representative Tony Hwang, and I'm here with three absolutely special people that are advocates, passionate supporters, and just heroes in regards to the mental illness support arena. And we have Dr. Philip Guzman, who is the Executive Director and CEO of the Child and Family Guidance Center, which has operations in Bridgeport, Fairfield, and Stratford, talking about the resources and the services of the Family and Guidance, the Child and Family Guidance Center. Talk to us about some of the coping mechanisms, some of the programs and treatment and the process, and talk to me about the range of age that you service in your organization.
Sure. Well, the Child and Family Guidance Center, we're an old agency, one of the few old age. We were founded in 1924 and really opened our first clinic in 1925. And the focus for us is really from 0 all the way up to the age of 18, and maybe even extended a little bit beyond that. And the services are traditional counseling, individual, family, and group therapy. But we also do in-home treatment with families if they need that, the services. So we try to do a broad range, because we know that the family is the key. So that's why we even changed our name from the Child Guidance Center to Child and Family, because the family has the problem and the family has the solution also. So it's really important to see that aspect of it. I would say in Connecticut, that mental health system in the past maybe 15 years has grown and has developed. So the state in some ways is very good, at least for children's mental health services. We have about 25, 26 child guidance centers throughout Connecticut. The infrastructure is good. The problem comes back is that sometimes we have gaps in services. We lack a service in certain parts of the community. So there are some gaps in our services. And then we've been, for over 5 years, we have not gotten an increase in the
cost
of living for grants. So we've been providing the same amount of services that we do now that we did 5 years ago, with the same amount of money that we had 5 years ago. So unfortunately, the system that's there is starting to kind of crumble at the edges, and we're seeing it. We just cannot continue to do this, because as greater awareness that NAMI does in mental health, more people become more aware and want the services. And that's what's very good about some of the things that are happening in the state. Now, when you look at children's services, there's a lot of issues about how do we communicate to a population, to the community, about the mental health needs of children. And many times, sometimes there's denial. The parents don't want to see the young child having a problem, because they have aspirations. You have your child, you really want to see them at the maximum potential. And then you feel like there's something going wrong, and it's heartbreaking. And that's a very difficult issue. And you find that maybe times when they should be looking out for services, they're not. And the stigma of mental health is also an obstacle, because if you could think of mental health as any behavior in which you may have some difficulty managing, then I think we would see more people coming to the clinic. But what happens is people wait until either a crisis comes or something that they just can't handle, or someone else brings attention. The school system says this child is not behaving well with other kids or with the teacher. That's when we get it, and I would like to see it earlier.
As Judy said, 1 in 4
Yes.
are impacted by mental illness.
Right.
And you're going from 0 to 18, and you talk about the stress factors, and with the challenge of modern day society, as well as the economic challenges of households. Do you see a trend of increased utilization in your organization?
Right. Yes, I think when you have a crisis like happened here recently in Newtown, you see the increase of those issues. Anytime a crisis comes, you'll find it reverberates throughout the community, throughout the county. You'll see more people becoming aware of what's my child like, how is my child doing, and so you see the need. The problem comes in is that when all these individuals knock at the door, there's sometimes the supply, the amount of services we have does not match the need of a community, and that's one of the difficulties. It is growing. There is being more awareness about mental health as an illness, as acceptable. The barriers are somewhat going down. That means that we have to be ready to respond, and we have to be ready to respond quickly. We can't have people waiting for services for long periods of time. That's not good.
You're talking also about a special population from 0 to 18. You're talking about young kids, teenagers, and as I remember, teenage angst is something we kid about rites of passage, but it manifests itself potentially into mental illness, and it's disguised. And you have 3 operations. It's in Bridgeport is where you're based, but you have been able to develop branch offices in Fairfield and Stratford. What happens in light of this day and age of budget cuts? Are those facilities going to go away?
Well,
even in light of the skew supply and demand, it just doesn't seem consistent.
Yeah. I can only stretch my dollar so much before it breaks. And what's happened is that for 5 years we have stretched our dollar so that, like I mentioned to you before, we have a very lean budget. 5% of of all the money I receive goes to just administration. 95% goes to direct services. So we're extremely lean. But this past year, for example, I had to consolidate 2 programs under one director, eliminating one position. The Fairfield Clinic, open normally 5 days a week, is now open only 2 days a week. Okay, if I have to cut some programs, I might have to cut the Fairfield Clinic completely. We don't want to see that, because we know that if it's in your community and it's part of your community, people access that easily, and that's what we want to do. So we're trying not to do that, but I feel like my back is to the wall financially as a business. We're trying to do payroll, health insurance, all these things, and we really don't see that support when it comes to the legislature in sense of funding.
You talk about the business side of it, but the reality is you are a nonprofit.
Exactly.
You've provided a service since 1924. Obviously, there has always been a need. What happens what happens if you're not there anymore? What happens, Judy, with regards to being able to offer those kind of resources? What happens?
Well, unfortunately, one of the stresses goes with parents, and you find the outcomes of the parents is job absences. You find alcoholism, drug addiction. All those pressures go into the family. It starts to implode almost a family, and that's hard. And when you think as the core of society of these families, we want, if the family is healthy, the kids are healthy, and then your work is healthy, the society is healthier. So really, mental health, although it's been overlooked compared to physical health many times for funding and resources, it's really the foundation for a lot of things that we need in our society. And we have not really appreciated that because of some of the stigma attached to it, right. The lack of things. It's interesting to know in this state, in Connecticut, it was Clifford Beers many years back in the 1920s, who was a wealthy individual, great Yale graduate, who had a nervous breakdown, had to be hospitalized. And his experience in being hospitalized when he came out was saying, I need to reform the mental health system. And he started around going and doing mental hygiene societies. Mm-hmm. We were one, Bridgeport had a mental hygiene society back in the 1920s, and they thought, in those days, we need this, and this is the business community. And so I think we, as a state, we have some very good things. I don't want to be always negative, but we have very good things. We just have to appreciate what we have and continue to gradually build on those things.